I know I've already asked you guys how you discipline your kids at home. Everyone pretty much said the same thing. We ground them, we put them in the corner, the occasional choke slam. But what about school? When a kid does something to warrant administrative action, what are the consequences? Suspension? Corporal punishment? Dunce cap? The reason I'm on the subject is because there's a couple of girls that got suspended from their school for making a sign for their friend that got lots of negative attention. The sign reads, "You may be picking cotton, but we pick you to go to prom with us." So this has sparked an argument as to whether or not the girls should have been suspended, let alone be allowed to go to the prom. Okay, so here's the backstory. These three girls are friends. The black young lady is heir to the white girl's grandparents' cotton farm. She wasn't planning on going to prom. So apparently this was their own little inside joke. Granted, they meant no harm. They made the mistake of posting it online for the world to see. That's no longer an inside joke. If these girls would have said this to their friend in a private setting, maybe it would have been no harm done. Because they're close friends and don't have any bias toward one another. Hell, I've got some close friends of color, and we say horrible, stereotypical, insensitive things to each other that we don't really mean. Why? Because we're comfortable with each other and we're not biased toward one another. We're just a bunch of ball-busting Neanderthals, possibly on the fast track to the lake of fire. But we share the common sense of not assuming that we can just be that way with random strangers on or off the internet. Do I think a reprimand is appropriate for these girls? Yes. Do I think they should be suspended? Hell no. These little dumbasses are obviously in desperate need of some learning. Can't do that if you're not at school. Personally, I think suspension is a lazy, unproductive punishment. It's like saying, you did something bad. Here, take 3 days off. Now you'll have plenty of time to post stupid things on the internet while you're not busy knowing things. So if you were in charge and you had to levy the punishment, what would it be? Before you answer that, let me tell you a little story. When I was a kid, I was slapping mud pies against my grandfather's car. I wasn't trying to be mean. I was just a wild boy goofing around, not really thinking about my grandfather's lethal fury. When my mother found out, she could have grounded me. She could have spanked me. She could have drowned me in the mud puddle she caught me pissing in. She had a better idea. She calls both of her sisters and says, "Come on over, ladies, but drive separately. My son is going to wash every car in the driveway." Resentfully, I took my punishment. I washed each of those cars spotless while they stood and watched. Once I was done, my mother walks up to her own car and dumps a bucket of dry dirt on the wet hood. I winced at the sight of it. Thought, okay, she's being extra tough. So I grabbed my bucket of soap and rags and stepped over to the car to get started. But she stopped me and said, "No, don't bother. I'll take care of this one some other time. You just go and play." Okay. At first, I didn't understand. I just went to the backyard and started playing with my toys. And every few minutes, I would peek around the house to see if anybody was cleaning that car. They were not. It was bothering the hell out of me. I was getting so frustrated. And I thought, I spent all the time and effort to make that car look great, and Mom just goes and ruins it without any consideration of me. Oh. I went straight to my grandfather and apologized. He and my mom shared a knowing glance. My mom says, "Son, I'm glad you learned this lesson. Now go clean that damn dirt off my car. It's driving me crazy." So the purpose of this story is, my mother never punished me without making a point. Regardless of whether it was a malicious intent or an innocent mistake, I did something wrong and I was punished for it. And I learned something that improved my consideration of other people. Imagine that. If you're going to correct poor or misguided behavior, you can't just say, "Don't do that, you're suspended." You have to drive a point. Now I'm going to ask you again. You're in charge. What method are you going to use to devise a punishment for these two girls? I'll be eager to hear it.
Catch up! Fuck! Give me a rag, Jake! Hurry up!